Hey, Mean Matt here. So, this is it. This is one of the, I guess, there's only probably two controversial Survivor Series pay-per-views that I know of, and this one is one of them. So, I probably did a review of this years ago. I probably didn't do a very good one at that, but I'm probably biased. We'll get to that when I get to that. So, the first match was the New Age Outlaws. The first time they got together since their shotguns of that year. Billy Gunn and Road Dogg Jesse James, the New Age Outlaws, and the Godwins defeated the Headbangers and the New Blackjacks, which was Barry Windham, or Blackjack Windham, and Blackjack Bradshaw. And this was probably when I remember seeing Bradshaw was the Blackjacks. Again, New Age Outlaws coming out. It was great to see them. Also, the Headbangers. Now, those were, when the Headbangers were still in their younger years. They were supposed to be back recently on SmackDown, but I guess it didn't take. Then you have the Godwins. There it is. Then you had the second match, the Truth Commission, which had the Jackal, the Interrogator, Sniper, and Reckon. Defeated the Disciples of Apocalypse, which was Crush, Chains, 8-Ball, and Skull. I knew the Jackal, I don't know all these other guys. And then you had the Disciples of Apocalypse, D.O.A, which I thought was another match. Yeah, that was and it's funny, I never knew Crush was in that take team. I never knew that. But, so there he was. D.O.A was pretty cool. I like them. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, but there you go. Team Canada, which had the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, the American Jim Neidhart, Doug Fumas, and Phil LaFont, defeated Team USA, Vader, Gold Dust, Marvelous Mark Merrow, and Steve Blackman, who made his debut. Yeah. What really pisses me off is that they just didn't try hard enough. I don't know much about Doug Fumas and Phil LaFont, but Jim Neidhart and the British Bulldog. Yeah. And, I just looked it up here. Doug is American, and the only Canadian on that team, Jesus Christ, is Phil LaFont. You have Team Canada, and the only Canadian on that team is Phil LaFont. Whatever, they won. And then you had Kane defeating Mankind. Kane came in earlier that year. He came in against The Undertaker. Eventually, Paul Bearer turned on Undertaker to side with Kane and Mankind. And, there was Mankind, then it was Kane. Kane defeated Mankind. Kane would, those two individuals would obviously make it into today, although very poorly on Kane's part. came also being Isaac Yankem. And you had Legion of Doom, Ahmed Johnson, Ken Shamrock. So that's what it was. They defeated the Nation of Domination, which was, of course, Rocky Maivia, who became The Rock, Farouk, Kamal Mustafa, and D.O.A. Brown. Well, yeah, this was a good match, especially when you saw the brawl outside. The Nation of Domination was one of those teams where you didn't know who the leader was. There was a Farouk, was it The Rock? And later, I guess we determined that it was The Rock. I think. No, The Rock got kicked out. Okay. Then you had the match that was at SummerSlam. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Owen Hart. This, I guess, was for the Intercontinental Championship, and Steve Austin became Intercontinental Champion. Now, if you saw SummerSlam, you saw the match where... Oh, no, wait. How did that go? Yeah, okay, so Steve Austin did win the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, but with the cost of the pile driver that almost ended his career, maybe his life. If it weren't for whatever reason. And then the IC Championship, I think, went to The Rock. And then Owen Hart became champion. And then now we have the Intercontinental Champion, Owen Hart. And then you get to the main event. Now, it's funny because there was a DVD not too long ago with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, the greatest matches. And it's funny to me because I obviously was never a Shawn Michaels fan. I despised Shawn Michaels. I thought he was full of himself, self-centered prick. And, you know, for what it's worth, he turned his life around. But that doesn't change anything. The fact of the matter is, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels have done a lot of matches together, a lot of Survivor Series matches together. I mean, you had their six-man tag team match where they were on the same team. They had the match where they were against each other. You had champion versus champion. Then, of course, you know, WrestleMania 12 with their Iron Man match. And then, of course, there's the two Intercontinental Championship matches of 1992. You had that, and then you go on to, you know what? There's these guys who eventually their egos got the better of them, and then hear these stories, and then, you know, the Attitude Era began in 97. I think it was in the middle of 97. And no, I think it was right before that, or right after that. But you had, you know, the old school guys like Bret Hart and the Bulldog, basically the new Hart Foundation against DX, you know, Triple H and Shawn Michaels with China and Rick Rude. Now, that's another thing too, is that people talked about, and I even talked about it, you know, having the 100th anniversary, 1000th, anniversary a couple years ago. And, you know, it's funny because they had DX come out and Triple H did his thing, but he didn't mention China or Rick Rude, and I thought about it. And Rick Rude was on DX's team for a few weeks until jumping ship to WCW. So there you go. But it's, it's just one of those things where Bret Hart didn't want to do business, apparently. He wanted to lose the match in Detroit the next night. Or no, I think they were in Ottawa. The thing is, and that's, it's, he said, she said, whatever. He didn't want to lose the belt in Canada, is what everyone thought. He said that he would have rather, he said he would rather losing in Detroit. And then so on and so forth. The unfortunate part is, nobody knew how to handle it properly. And it eventually ended up, and it's more or less Paul Levesque's fault, saying, well, fuck him. If he doesn't want to do business, we'll do business for him. And, who the fuck is he? So, basically that's what it turned into. There's a point where Bischoff said later on, we weren't planning on taking the title over to WCW. That wasn't the plan. Maybe if we would have talked about it, well, no fucking shit. Maybe this would have never happened. Who knows? Bret Hart went to WCW because he was being paid more than Vince was giving him at the time. There was some bullshit excuse, I don't know. Vince McMahon should have followed through with what their plan was. And unfortunately, because Vince was too hurt, I guess, he decided to keep the idea of screwing Bret Hart over. And unfortunately, Shawn Michaels was a part of that. And the reason people were pissed off at Shawn Michaels for a number of years, including myself, 12 years is how long it took. So, it's one of those things where it wasn't all his fault. It wasn't all Vince's fault. Hell, it wasn't even all Earl Hebner's fault. They, teamed together, You could blame Earl Hebner. He's the one that was originally going to do the freak out. But, oddly, as it turned out, Shawn Michaels slaps on a sharpshooter, and the fast count, or the fast thing happens, and Shawn is the new WWF champion. And then, of course, you had the backstage drama where you had Bret Hart go backstage and knock McMahon not unconscious, but, punching his lights out. And it's one of those, again, I'm saying this too much, but it's just one of those things where you have to give back, I guess. He felt like he had owed Bret that one opportunity. So for years, it was always a bitter pill to swallow for Bret, and especially Shawn Michaels. But eventually, Bret Hart had the stroke. Shawn Michaels found Jesus, whatever. And basically, it ate away at Shawn Michaels. It ate away more at Bret Hart than usual. Obviously, if you see interviews where he's, still bad-mouthing Shawn Michaels, it was one of those, you broke my back, and now we're gonna pay for it, motherfucker. There it is, it's a friendship that was gone sour, I guess. And, and it was upsetting for me because I didn't watch wrestling that much at the time. So my brother told me the next day, for Monday Night Raw, that Bret Hart left WWF for WCW. And I didn't believe him at first. But it happened. To think, what would have happened if this whole thing didn't happen? Let's say Bret Hart was still in the WWF. Well, he probably wouldn't have had the stroke. He probably wouldn't have had shitty storylines. And Owen Hart would have probably still been alive because he would have listened to Bret Hart instead of doing what these idiots wanted him to do. Who knows? And the thing is, Shawn Michaels, for all I think of him and everyone else, Shawn Michaels would have never been, picked on and scot-free, and he wouldn't have been able to go to Montreal and not have these "you screwed Bret" chants. It's one of those, it happens, it happens. There's a lot of that guilt. But then, in 2010, in January 2010, you had Bret Hart come back to the WWE finally, and he called out Shawn Michaels and they made amends. And I'm pretty sure that, while being inducted into the 2006 Hall of Fame, obviously him and Vince McMahon made amends. And that's pretty much the way it should have been. You get a lot of these guys who wrong the WWE and unfortunately get bad raps, like Warrior or Jake Roberts. And then you get Bret Hart, who was always a good person. Yeah, he has his differences and stuff. People tend to get all sensitive or defensive when they hear, his opinions on certain wrestlers. Like, what the fuck do you know? But I was always a Bret Hart fan. And it's unfortunate he went to WCW. Because I never watched that piece of shit. But it's always gonna be a story. It's always gonna be there. WWE is, always gonna be Bret's place. Bret and Shawn have obviously made friends. It's just the way it is. And yeah, that was Survivor Series 1997. And hopefully, as I go through it, maybe. My computer's been bad lately. But, for making videos, so I have to use my, camera here that I have. But, yep, there it is. And then next year is going to be interesting. That I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Alright, that's me, Matt. Bye.